Welcome everybody to another Attack Mobility exclusive member video. I am so excited because today we are having, I'd like to think that she's one of my new besties, but I don't know, maybe not. We're pretty new friends, but she is a complete gem. Today we have on the podcast Lieutenant Jenna Clawson from North Dakota. She's a highway patrol officer or trooper. You're not an officer, you're a trooper. And she has done literally every job under the book. And it was really, really awesome meeting her when I went to North Dakota. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Jenna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I had her send over her bio, and you literally have done so much in your career already, and you're under 40, and you
Yeah,
have two kids.
yeah,
And if that doesn't say that women really can do it all, I mean, I don't know what does. Like,
too much.
dude, she's done Capitol Security, PIO, Dignitary Protection, and you are the recipient of, tell me what this award was all about.
Yeah, so the last year and the beginning of this year, one of my good friends, he's a traffic trooper up in the Northeast. He nominated me for the International Association of Chiefs of Police 40 under 40, which was a surprise and just super kind of him. He's a recipient himself. And I got it. So I went to Denver last October with my family and got to stand on the stage with people from all over the world. It was truly incredible and just such an honor and a surprise.
That it's not surprising to me at all. You really do have it together, which I think it's one of the things that I get to observe as I go across the country and I work with men or women. There is like this common theme amongst the women that I get to do ride-alongs with or just spend a little bit of time with. And it's that there is this theme of like success and I don't even know the right word. I can't even think of it, but like there's excellence.
Yeah.
And I felt that when I was working with you. So I'm really, really glad to have you on the episode. Okay, we are talking about postpartum. And if you are a dude, don't go anywhere. Okay.
No.
I highly encourage you to stay on this. And the reason is because this is not an episode just for women to feel supported or commiserate or anything like that. This is going to be like informational. And, a lot of the challenges that women are facing are because there needs to be some changes within the agency itself, structurally, to be able to support the things that women go through. And I really want you to stick around and learn something. And for the ladies, this is your time to get your answers or to get your questions answered. I recently posted on socials asking you, I said, I'm going to have Lieutenant Clawson on. She has had a lot of experience in the postpartum world and send us your questions. And they flooded in.
I bet.
They flooded in, girl. Oh my God. Okay. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is like, okay, so explain your family dynamic, what your situation, not your situation, but explain like how your family looks.
Yes, so I have two kids, 6 and 3 years old. They are incredible, kind of feral, but in the best way possible. You got to meet them with their chickens in the backyard. We introduced Erica to North Dakota in like the best way possible, and it wasn't winter, so that was good. My husband, incredibly supportive. He's angelic. I tell people that all the time. He's the only person who probably could have married me and survived. He was in the military for 11 years. When we had our second kid, decided I want to spend more time with family. They begged him to stay in, but he just, proud of him, made that decision on his own. I've only known him in the military, and I loved like my time alone when he would go, and it would just work for us. But he is the guy. I mean, you can't take babies in a patrol car, so he's the default parent in many ways. And I get asked from men mostly, does he feel emasculated by having to like be the default parent and do daycare drop off whatever? And I'm like, that thought has never even occurred to me because he doesn't. He's like, I think that means I'm more secure in my masculinity because I don't even think about that. Like, why is that even a question? But I get asked that a lot. And then is he
Yeah.
intimidated by your job type of things? And like, he has his own things going on, many things. But no, there's just so much to be learned only from that. But it's been a theme throughout my career.
I feel like that right there is like so many that sums up like a big part of like what I think what women are going through is like they are the default parent. They are still in control of everything and schedules and appointments and all the things. That's really uncommon to hear.
Very, yeah. I'm lucky. I mean, we luckily have always never kept score because it is a losing game. And so sometimes, I mean, when he was in the military, he'd be gone like, I don't know, 3 months at a time sometimes. And I was like huge and pregnant with the toddler and whatever, you make it work. When he comes back, we go back into our usual thing. And I'm a default parent in other ways, but he has to do the bulk of that. I realize how lucky I am in saying that though, because most women that I talk to, they're the default parent plus they're doing this job, or they're doing it completely alone.
Mhm.
They're single momming, and I just applaud them so much because I do realize that I'm so fortunate in that way.
I think and I wasn't even expecting the conversation to go this way, but I think that that's a really important thing to kind of bring up is that, there are going to be women that listen to this episode that are perhaps pregnant or considering family planning. And this might not have even been a thought to consider within, having that like family meeting with your partner is what are our roles going to look like? How are we willing to divvy up responsibilities? Did you guys have those conversations?
Yeah, we did, and we had them for a couple of years, even leading into it, because I was 30 when I had my son. I entered law enforcement at 26, a little bit later than your average, like 18-year-old who's basically still, yeah, well, brain development, the whole thing. We could go in so many paths, but we did talk about it, but I will say there's really nothing like just doing it firsthand to realize, okay, we made plans and then haha, here's how they actually looked. And we've had to continue to have conversations about what that looks like because we don't have family close by. We've formed a network around us, but I'm a cop. We all have trust issues. My son didn't have a babysitter till he was 4 years old because I'm like, nope. Unless he can tell me how it went
You're like,
happening.
I've responded to too many things. Daycare is not an option.
Yes, my happening. Oh my gosh. And so we were fortunate, like home daycare, whatever people we knew. And then yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot since then and had to chill out a little bit, but not without some serious repetition.
Yeah, I really like that idea of women and men like or partners, whatever that dynamic looks like within your family, of having that conversation of how one, like what are your needs, right? Like figuring you have a career, you have passions, you have goals that you want to meet, you also have a family that you want to raise with certain types of values or support structures or whatever that looks like. I feel like that's such a healthy way to approach
Mhm.
something that I think so many of us just sort of like haphazardly just like went into and sort
Yeah.
of were like struggling to stay, above water. Like it's such an overwhelming thing to become a new parent.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm really curious. Okay, so after you had because you were an officer for both pregnancies, how long before you went back on duty with each of your kids?
Yeah, so I started my career as a traffic trooper for about 4 years. This is just a quick detour to tell you how I got here. I created a program for North Dakota after our huge protests over the Dakota Access Pipeline protests to engage with tribal nations, have better relationships. The administration at the time was like, we need this now. You're either going to do it full time or we have someone else do it. What an opportunity. When an opportunity arises, you have to take it, even though I was not ready to leave the road. I was having fun. I loved being out with my shift. And that comes with a ton of skepticism, leaving detail too early on the road. But that allowed me the space and opportunity to be in an administrative role for my first pregnancy. Again, also very grateful for that because it's difficult to do shift work while you're also pregnant. That said, I did plenty of overtime programs. I was still working the road part-time whenever I could while pregnant. I realized during that first pregnancy, we try to have something to prove in staying in uniform for as long as we can while pregnant. Some of that's on us, some of that's on our leadership. If you're in an agency, it's like treats you horribly once you say that you're pregnant. Um, So I was 20 weeks pregnant with my son. First kid, so like not showing as quickly, but definitely there. My duty belt was uncomfortable. I responded to this gentleman having a mental health episode on the Capitol complex, and we all piled in on this guy, and he was a big like old man strength style thing going on. And I realized then I was like, what am I doing? This is a blip in my career. I'm 20 weeks pregnant with a baby that I would do anything for, to include quitting this job if I had to, right? But here I am risking this, tangling up on the pavement to prove that I can. Like, just stupid.
Mm.
My agency knew I was pregnant then. I waited till maybe 16 weeks to tell them. And then from that point forward, anytime we've had a female get pregnant, which is very rare, there's 7 of us out of 171 troopers that are women. We're trying the whole 30 by 30 is
Yeah,
we're good.
trying.
Come to North Dakota, we need you.
Please,
Uh,
bro.
yeah, and so I saved my leave. I was on leave for 10 weeks and did 2 more later, but immediately went back in uniform, ready or not. And yes, administrative role, but I had something in my brain to prove still. So like, how fast can I get out and start making traffic stops? Put my number on the map. People hear my voice on the radio to prove to who. Um,
Well, who did you feel like you had to prove it to?
Well, there's a bunch of narrative you hear secondhand always, right, from peers about how long women are on light duty, how long they are on light duty for pregnancy, and then if they come back on light duty, holy smokes, the world ends. No, it doesn't, but that's what you hear. So I felt like it was trying to prove that to my peers. Um, for I don't know what reason, but because I'd heard a lot of it secondhand, while simultaneously telling other women like you have to do that, and internally I was doing the same thing. I didn't for my second pregnancy, but the first one I definitely did.
Okay, and
Um,
how long before you went back with your second pregnancy?
so second pregnancy, I took all 12 weeks because well, we'll get into that part. I had postpartum so bad that I couldn't even consider going back before 12. I wish I'd had even more time, because I could not hardly think straight, even at 12 weeks.
What were like the big, what were some of like the bigger symptoms that you were dealing with that were kind of like in the way of you wanting to return back?
So with my son, hindsight looking back now, I know I had postpartum anxiety. If you've never Googled intrusive thoughts, do it, and then you'll be like, most of us will be like, oh, I deal with that. And then when you
Like,
have a baby, multiply that, like the worst things you can possibly think about.
yeah, dude.
Yes. And then with my daughter, it was postpartum anxiety and depression, like a brick wall. I mean, looking back now, I was like, oh, that was building like over time. It's just that was the like flare point of like, okay, you're not going to deal with this, then your brain and your body's going to do it for you, ma'am, is what
I
happened.
mean, yeah, that's the intrusive thoughts component. I think a lot of for women who are going through it, women who've gone through it, you know how uncomfortable it makes you feel. For women who are pregnant, know that that is a potential possibility. I
Yeah.
don't know. I haven't met a woman yet that hasn't had them. I think they vary on a spectrum for how intense they can be, but it's this feeling of like you're going to hurt your child.
Yes.
Like and it can be like tossing it over the staircase. It
Yep.
can be
Yep.
hitting it with a wall. It can be what if I suffocate this child?
I can't like drive this car. I'm just going to go drive it off a cliff. Your brain does all of that. And it causes so much distress if you haven't educated yourself about it in advance, which I had loosely known about but not dug in too far, because it's like, well, if that's in my brain, what if people knew I was thinking these things? Now I'm supposed
Yeah,
to go up to work and carry a gun. Ah, like you just
right.
compounds. And in
Right.
reality, if there's anyone dealing with this at this very minute, just remember intrusive thoughts are what you don't want to happen. It is your brain thinking of the worst possible scenario
Mhm.
and thinking, this could happen. I don't want this to happen. And then your brain freaks out. You have to picture it like a book or a magazine on a shelf. Like, okay, I'm observing this thought. this is not something I'm interested in reading, and you put it right back. It's like a repetition of practice. I swear to God, it works. It will take time, but it does work. It's what you don't want to happen because you are a good person and your brain has seen an
Mm.
insane amount of things. Which reminds me, you don't have to watch every horrible thing on the internet just because it involves law enforcement, because you can't get that back out. Once you've seen it, it's there. And there's
Yeah.
some things we see and forget, but there's so much that we don't, especially firsthand things.
I think that that is, I think that that's really useful with like the being able to observe that this is a thought that your brain is thinking and that it means that you are a good person and that a lot of it is just what you've been exposed to. And that kind of brings me back to the, you saying that like you stayed on for longer than you should. One thing that you and I talked about, and I always want to be really, really um, conscious and careful with how I word my next thought. I am an observer of law enforcement. And one thing that I've thought that was very curious is how many women stay on shift for so long with the knowledge that whatever you experience, the baby also experiences. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, that moment that you had with that fight is like a blip in your career. Like it doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
it in long term, it doesn't. But what happens if your distress and the child kind of collide and there are long term repercussions or just your overall sense of safety, like teaching your body how to step away from hypervigilance because to your point, when you have postpartum anxiety and then you couple on top of that, like all of the hypervigilance and all the things, it's a lot. It's a big cocktail for your body to experience. So, like, what are some of your thoughts knowing that, like, you're in it, you're a cop, you know that this is part of the job, you know how that pressure is felt? Like, what do you say? Like, if you were to do it again, would you do it differently? Or how do you talk to other women about that?
Yeah. Um, Something, I think we talked about this when you were up here, but something that you posted once or sent out in a newsletter resonated with me so hard. I was sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot, pregnant with my daughter. I'd had two miscarriages between my son and my daughter, and so every single day I thought my daughter was dead. Talk about intrusive thoughts. And so my anxiety level during pregnancy was just like add work onto it. And yes, I was on light duty, but I deal with some very heavy work still. I do all of our alerts in the state, so missing persons, Amber alerts, etc. And I am an empath, so I take every like person who doesn't get found, death, whatever, personally. I was sitting in the parking lot trying to do these deep breathing exercises that the doctor told me to practice. And I'm like, oh my God, this is making me feel worse. Like, what is going on? And almost simultaneously, a newsletter came out for me. It was like, if you only practice deep breathing while you're stressed out, it's gonna teach your body to be stressed out while you deep breathe. That was the message. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Damn it. I haven't practiced any of this in a good way to be able to use it as a toolbox and many other things you could learn.
Mm.
And so you have to start now. And that goes for men or women if you know you're going to experience stress in your career. So, and our careers do this roller coaster, our emotions, all the stress levels. So when you're in like a things are easy, hit it hard. Don't be
Yes.
easy. And I'm kind of a hypocrite in saying this is okay, I'm good right now. Like, all right, I'm just gonna hit it even harder and get all my good stuff done right now. That's when you gotta pause, you gotta work on that toolkit. So when you're up at a level 10 and you feel like you can't control anything, you can lean on those. 'Cause otherwise, they're not built yet. And I would have done
Mm.
different so many times. I'm
Mm.
still working on that, but I would have done that differently for my babies, definitely, because I can't even imagine the cocktail in my daughter's body from how
Yeah.
much stress I was under, just an incredible amount. And then I breastfed her and I was insanely worried about my stress at the time passing on her. Everything you Google, you know, the algorithm, it starts feeding you like,
Oh
oh yeah,
yeah.
you're giving the baby all these stress hormones,
Oh
but it says
yeah.
don't you dare feed him formula. It's like, oh my gosh, I could have given her formula. I could have went to sleep, all of the things. And then I had to use medication when I was in postpartum. And you cannot, don't worry about it. If you need it, you need it. I was talking to a group at work the other day and I heard them kind of dogging on medication. I know it's not for everybody, but it can be so helpful. It can add a layer of stress in though, because there I am feeding my sweet little girl, like, now what about this? It's so much.
Yeah, I like that you. Okay, so interestingly, in one of our surveys, we asked people what they thought about medications, and kind of like the overarching answer was, it's not for me, but that's cool for other people, right? And
Yeah.
it's so funny that so many folks in law enforcement, and I mean, this survey had about like 3,000 responses, and this was like the major thing, right? So I'm not just saying so many, right? It is a lot.
That is a
Um,
lot.
Folks feel like medication there's too many social stigmas around it because there's not enough information. When you realize that when your body is deficient a certain thing, right? Vitamin D, when your body isn't receiving enough of it, think about people who live in climates that don't see a lot of sun. We go like, "Oh, that makes sense that they would supplement with that." Medications are operating the same way in your body, and I believe that if more people understood that it is a way of closing the gap between that version of yourself that you really feel like you can be and where you actually are, I
Yes.
think that more people would start to entertain the idea that medication can be helpful. And it the cool part about medication is they're not always long term.
Yes. And it can be and it cannot be. It does not have to be forever. I would implore you to build your care team so that you can go get all your hormones checked, all of the things, and even look within healthy ranges of like, is that healthy or still on the high end of healthy? And
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to do that when you're in a mentally good place. At least for myself, I can say that. And it made my life so much easier to basically be able to fast track feeling better so that I could make my whole health better. And I couldn't have done that without medication. It was eye-opening to me. I was just open about it after a few weeks of coming back to work. I didn't come back in uniform. I came back with a gun on for like 2 weeks, by the way, after my daughter. And then I was just like, I can't do this. I am not personally okay, and I'm supposed to go potentially help people that need it. And I was basically hiding out, doing my job, but with my door closed and catching up. After you're gone for 3 months, you have some serious catch up. But I came home one day and my husband's like, again, angelic through the whole thing. I'm just like, I can't freaking do this. Everybody at work thinks I'm totally fine. I work with all dudes. Um, but then I went to work, I let my boss know, and he was just like, well, yeah, I've experienced depression. Nobody knows what that's like unless you've done it. You don't have to worry about it. Give yourself grace. You give it to everybody else. Like, so kind and helpful. But then I started talking to other women, and I work with a lot of our civilian staff too. The women were like, yeah, I could tell. I'm like, see, women, we know. They're like, oh, I had no idea. You look great. And I was like, I was dead inside. And the more I talked about it, the more older women who'd been through it, they're done having kids, were like, yeah, I went through that. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about it. I had no support system, but it is still highly stigmatized. Still highly stigmatized. So I just shout it from the rooftops now.
You're so right though. And like this is the key to change. And this is why I'm so loud on the internet is if no one's ever talking about it, then no one knows that it's an issue. And we also underestimate people's ability to care for the things that we go through. So if we do talk about some of the things that we're experiencing, if more women do vocalize these things, which I understand that there is a risk involved with that because there
Yeah.
is a lot of social stigma and pressure on women, but it not only potentially can help you, but can also help the women that are coming after you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about we're talking about pumping. I can't imagine my milk coming in under the pressure of a tack vest and
Yeah.
then like that like feeling of like you're still bleeding, like every woman is different, but like wearing a giant pad, like all of the things. Like, okay, so when was it that you first realized coming back to shift, whether
Yeah.
this is pumping or breastfeeding or just coming back from maternity leave, what
Yep.
was the thing that like really made you realize like, oh my God, this fucking system is not designed to support women?
Fully, it is not designed to support us at all. So, with both my kids, I was in a heavy travel role. So, I was in my car all the time, going all over the state. And I bought a portable pump, absolute necessary, or if you can plug it into a car, you cannot have a pump that just plugs into the wall. I hope for all women listening to this, your insurance covers it, but a lot of them do not. Uh, that would be a great change, but I know that's like a bigger conversation in each state. Um, so then I was joking a joke to some of my peers, and like I pumped all over the countryside in realizing that, like, especially in the state patrol, we don't really have home offices. We have district offices. There's six of them in the state of North Dakota, so very far apart. And I had to get completely comfortable with stopping at a school, stopping at a state office building in another area, or just pumping right in my squad car. And like, it's got to happen. So I'm just gonna do it to the point where you're like hiding on a side road, taking everything off. Luckily, we have zippers in our uniforms now, so you can just kind of like do the whole thing. But yeah, and sometimes with a portable pump, pumping while driving down the road, we have women using portable pumps under their tack vests in the middle of a traffic stop. It's going to get really messy if something goes south, but you're completely capable still.
I got a comment. This woman said that she was an EMT and she was wearing her portable pump and they had to do compressions on a guy. She's like, I was spilling milk everywhere. I'm like, not the milk.
Not the liquid balls. Oh my gosh. And so the my first son, I was like pumping in bathrooms at first, which was my own choice. That's against the law, by the way. You can't make your women pump in the bathroom. It's a federal law. You
Right. This
have
is the Pump Act.
yes, I believe that's what it's called. And you can't the whole every single state, you can't say, okay, we made a pumping space for you and it's in the bathroom. Gotta find a different space for them. The best thing, men listening, I hope you're still listening, if you know you have a woman coming back and she asks for a space, do it before she even asks. She might not be breastfeeding. If she is and you've already thought of it, you have a space, holy smokes, you've just built so much rapport and credibility with that female coming back, feeling supported. And let me tell you, it does not take an insane amount of time to pump. I've heard people in our agency, other agencies, like, oh, how many breaks are they going to need to pump? Well, how many breaks do people need to smoke a cigarette? Probably way more than we need to pump. And it is the food for our child, but it does
I,
not take long.
okay. I've been getting very pissed off. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm getting comments from women telling me what they've heard from their male coworkers and the frustrations that they feel about how many breaks they're taking or how whatever. And and one thing that I said to this female was like, I want you to remember every time you hear that comment that they're not mad at you. They're mad at the system that has not adequately created coverage, knowing what your needs are based off of what your needs are. This is not about you. This is a structural, like, this is an infrastructure issue. This has nothing to do with you. And because the agency is not aware or making changes fast enough, then it's being pushed onto other people. So of course people are going to have something negative to say. There's always going to be the assholes that are just dickheads, right? That's just going to happen. But this is not about you. So it's not something that you need to take ownership of and internalize. This is something that you put right back onto the agency and
Yep.
say like, I am an employee, like,
Yes.
and learn to advocate and vocalize. And also, like, I've never been a cop, but I have been a mom. And sometimes you need to put it back on them. Like, are you making fun of me because I'm breastfeeding? Or like
Yeah.
name the thing that they're doing so that they realize
Yes.
that they're doing something that's not right and allow their own conscience to kind of do the teaching for them because a lot of times, you guys have such this there's so much like back and forth shit
Oh
talking
yeah.
that's just a part of the culture, which is fine.
Yep.
But then when it's something that is really like private and you're insecure about, that's when things can really start to weigh in on you and that pressure. And like, how does that impact your ability to stay locked in the job, feel like you're doing the right thing by being a mom and prioritizing your body and your baby's needs. Like it gets in the way of a lot of that.
It does.
So how did you make space for your postpartum return? Like what are the things that you did to set it up? And then what were some of the things that like you were going through where you're like, oh, we need to put this in place?
Yeah, so with my first son, well, I have a son and a daughter, but with my first pregnancy, I took a look at policy before I told anyone I was pregnant. Our light duty policy for pregnancy had not been updated since 1991. I was born in 1989. So when I was two, they had, well, that would have been like their second baby in the patrol ever born. Yeah, and we've come a long way since then. And the female trooper at the time who established those, she went through it. Holy smokes. But our leadership is super progressive, was then too. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait till I'm ready to tell them, but I am not just gonna say this sucks without here's what I think should change. So I took it, added a couple of things here and there. One thing in there was as soon as you find out you're pregnant, you tell your supervisor. I'm like,
Which is so which is
whoa.
so inappropriate because it
100%.
is such a private thing and
Yes.
so many women are already dealing with the what ifs I
Yes.
miscarry that like now you have to involve people who may or may not have your back or even be compassionate towards what you're going through.
Yes.
Oh,
But so if
not
there's
appropriate.
policies like that out there, hit me up. I will absolutely share ours. I would help you advocate at your agency for why it needs to change. It just has to. Twice I would have had to tell my agency I'm pregnant and then mourn publicly, basically, when I wasn't pregnant anymore. That would have been horrible. And I told a few people when it happened, but the people I wanted to know, the people who would support me coming back, give me some time off, whatever. Um, and then some of our other policies that just were way more inclusive of women, inclusive of not only women, but also men coming back, returning from light duty. One thing was you need to immediately pass your PT test upon returning from light duty. And I was like, okay, we need to revamp this, not just for women, but I was 10 weeks postpartum with my son and I came back, had to do my PT test before I could get in the uniform. I did it, but I basically like peed my pants. One of our females did it at 6 weeks, still with stitches and things. It just was not appropriate, but I found out we were not speaking up in like, hey, we can't do this. Here's why. And when we updated it, it's also for the guy that blows out his knee or returns from a shoulder injury.
I
Like,
was
why?
just about to ask.
Yes. And so it was
Okay.
for everybody. It was not just like, okay, when you come back from pregnancy, you can wait. You have 180 days to pass your PT test. Your doctor needs to say, yes, you're good to return to work with you. You have to make that decision. But you don't need to go press an injury, press a postpartum experience with
Oh,
pushing yourself to the max at a PT test. That makes no sense for anyone, men or women. So
oh
now
my
we
God.
don't do that anymore.
Can you
But
imagine an episiotomy and having to jump over a wall? I would
oh,
die.
horrible. And like pick up this 150 pounds. Okay. I just no way. So a lot of these policy updates are inclusive of everybody. They benefit everybody. And that's sometimes lost in all of this is women are screaming from the mountaintops that they need this and that. And sometimes maybe it is something specifically for women or specifically for men. That is fine, but most of the time it's actually improves everybody's life.
I think that that is so fucking incredible that you said that because it really is true. Like I saw a video not too long ago about how many many things, many policies within disability acts have actually improved everybody's life. Like the way that curbs go down, right? And it's just,
Yes.
there are simple things that had nothing to do with people who don't have any disabilities have been
Yep.
positively impacted by these things. So I think that that is such an incredible thing. Like when minority groups are supported, everybody wins. That is
Yeah.
such an important thing. Okay, so did you are you aware that Canada has a 12-month maternity leave?
You know what? I am, but only because I'm uniquely slotted to. I'm a dual citizen to Canada. My mom's Canadian. And so half my family's up there and they're like, "Oh, do you get a year off with your baby?" And I was like,
Oh,
yeah. I got 10 weeks and they were like, like their whole heart just came out of their body. How do you give your baby? I'm like, I know. Trust me, I know.
yeah.
My first baby to daycare, I walked in and I was just like looking at her in uniform, like, don't mess with my baby. I mean, I love her to death. She was a home daycare, sweetest lady ever. But I mean, I do that to every time we go to a new daycare, I walk in. But
Oh my God.
yeah, that 12 months, and it can be up to 18 and some, like you can do a slow roll back to work for like 6 months, I believe. But yeah,
Wow.
I can't believe it. A lot of countries are. We are very far behind. I say that having really struggled on maternity leave with how silent it is. You are the busiest you've ever been while being almost sedentary in a silence almost, and the walls basically started closing in on me because I have a lot of drive. I'm go, 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 but I didn't ever really take the time before any of these postpartum experiences to be like, okay, in the silence, do I like hanging out with myself? And if I'm not achieving, am I still good with not doing that? And that
Mm,
was the big growth period for me upon returning, is trying to prove I could, realizing I couldn't. And there was one day in particular, I went to my friend's office. She transferred over to our training academy. And I'm sitting there in civvies, but with my gun on still. And she's like, just looks at me and and we burst out crying. And I was just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. And she's like, okay, why? Are you okay? Do you know, like the whole thing? And she's like, you know what? It's kind of nice to see you be human. And I was just like thinking,
mm,
F you, biatch. But then I'm like, you know what? She's like, you give this appearance as if
yeah.
everything is achievable and nothing is that big of a struggle and whatever. And when in reality, everything feels like a struggle, and like I have to try so hard. She's just like, it's
Yeah.
good to see you be human. And I'm like, whoa, that one hit me, but in a way that helped me change too.
I think that that is such a beautiful thing that you mentioned, because, you know, when you are in the silence, when it is 2 a.m., when you are off for however many weeks and it's just you and this baby, and all of the busyness starts to slow down, it's almost like this preview of retirement, of like when things slow down, like how comfortable are you with yourself? And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of mothers, especially like high driving mothers, so much of our identity really is wrapped around what we can accomplish, who we can prove wrong, like how well we can do things, how we're perceived. And when you're in that silence, going back to what you said about like if you're the only time that you're practicing nervous system regulation is when you're in like a really overwhelming moment, it's not going to feel good. When you're pregnant and you're, on maternity leave and it started, or when you've had the baby, that silence is going to feel overwhelming. And in order for you to be able to slow down and enjoy it,
Yeah.
it does require you to start that thought process before the baby comes, and keep telling yourself, like, this is a small, this moment in my baby's life and in my life is going to be gone in a fucking second. It flashes by so quickly, even though the days feel really long, but it is such a beautiful opportunity for you to recalibrate your body, connect with this baby, stare at it, like do all the things, even with the depression that might be there and the anxiety that might be there, fighting against that and really trying to like try to be connected to that moment. I
Mhm.
think is so I think that's such a brilliant thing. And it's also very brave to do, when you're wired for hypervigilance and go and like, all of the cultural things that your agency puts on you as far as standards, right? And professionalism and having it together, that's woven in, like that's baked in, and you're going to experience it when things get quiet. So I kind of want to talk just a little bit more about leadership and advocacy. So you're in this lieutenant role.
Yeah.
How can other women, how would you suggest women going and advocating for themselves? So you mentioned earlier starting by looking at the policies,
Yep.
and then does that look like writing down? writing down the policies that like do are not congruent with what you think you're going to go through, or do they need to be researching other policies to see like what's possible? And then like how do they have those conversations? Do they find a woman? Do they go to HR? Do they like what are the steps?
Yeah, so take a scan of your policies because that's where it starts. People hate to hear the word policy, but it starts there because at the end, that's where it's at too. So look in there, come up with what the policies are, specifically in those policies, what is the issue there, and how could it be fixed? You don't have to know the answer, but if you don't have a network of women, start now. Get to some trainings if you can, do free ones virtually online. You can get a hold of people and ask for examples. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can beg, borrow, and steal policies from people. Maybe you don't even have a policy. Some people's policy book is very, very thin, but it certainly helps. What I can't stress enough is to find men who are advocates for women in your agency or a neighboring agency because when one man speaks up on behalf of a woman, it makes a difference with other men. It just does. We can scream at the rooftops, and I've done it, and it has worked with women by myself. But when I found a man who will advocate for women, and I make sure I tell him that to his face, like, hey, I appreciate that you said XYZ or you stood up for this, even because it's not necessarily comfortable for men, especially in this big mob mentality that law enforcement can be, to be like, you know what, that's actually not right. Or my wife went through something like that, and that is
Yeah.
very difficult. You don't know what you're talking about. That takes courage. And so if you hear it, see it, know of it, specifically tell them, like, I appreciate that. And it is like, I've just seen this fire ignite in guys who I've told, thank you for that. They will do it again and again, not only for you, but for other women. Um, and it makes such a difference. And then let's just face it, most leadership positions are filled with men. So if you can find a man like that in a leadership position, you're going to have a much higher success rate of getting some changes that will stick, that will be also then enforced. Um, and of course, some women in leadership, but not all women in leadership are unfortunately interested in kind of pushing the buck and getting things changed. So you got to find your allies in that too. And that's just to say too, sometimes women are like, you know what, this is not my fight to fight. I don't feel comfortable doing it.
Right.
The woman's battle to do it. Maybe they just aren't interested, but find your peers, find your allies. And I had this conversation with a female that's in another agency in the state, and she's like, how do I change all this? This is bad. This is, and it was like some serious toxic things. And I'm like, I think I know what you can do. And like, go find somewhere else to work. How are you going to change all that? You don't have to. That is not your job to change all of that.
Wow.
And it's a hard thing to come to realization with, but sometimes that is the answer is like, I can go make some changes somewhere else. Nowhere's going to be perfect. Go work somewhere else.
Speechless. Man, that was
It makes
okay.
sense.
Let's get on to these rapid fire questions, ma'am.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Actually, before I do that, uniforms.
Yeah.
What is the next, what is the next step for uniforms when it comes to maternity? I've been saying for the last 2 years, why can women not have stretchy pants? Knowing what our bodies do throughout a month cycle, bro, we gain weight. Like,
I
we gain
know.
like 2 pounds for no fucking reason
I
every
know.
week.
I
So,
know.
like, maternity, like, are we talking like stretchy pants? Are we talking like tactical vests with like a, you know how they
Yeah.
have like the bras where like you can nurse? Like, what does it
Yeah.
look like?
Okay, so one of our female troops, she had somebody sew in our agency pays for the alterations to sew in a zipper along the seam of like a Class B uniform. And then she could pop off her vest as the zips down the front, put in her portable pumps and zip everything back up. And she'd be like making traffic stop at the whole 9 yards. She one time forgot to zip it back up and popped out to pump gas and like her things all popped open and this dude's like,
Keep
hey,
your titties in check.
yeah.
Keep your titties in
Yeah.
check.
But also when I was with my first son trying to figure out how to stay in uniform longer, my sister's a seamstress and she put in stretchy panels under my gun holster and my taser holster, one on each side. So it was like this big elastic panel that fit right under the holsters. You couldn't even see it. Oh, I was just like breathing again. And so to have some just minor alterations or say like, hey, will the agency pay if I get these done? It's, like $20 to get something like that done. And it can make a huge difference. Huge difference
Are
to get.
companies not making these?
No, the market just is not there. The market's there for us. I've asked vendors, I'm like, would you? Well, they're like, well, it's not a huge money maker for us because how many women? I know. Because agencies have to buy it on behalf of women. That's where I guess the hang up would be. Would be agencies willing to pay to have it on stock for women to get it in their specific uniform type. Like our
Okay.
pant color is patented. So to get it's just red tape. Talk about red tape.
Okay.
No.
Rapid fire questions, ma'am.
Okay.
Most misunderstood postpartum issue.
Sleep deprivation, because if you haven't experienced it, you truly don't know. Oh, you're low on sleep. Mm-mm.
Uh, One myth about police moms.
Ooh. That we can't do as much as we do all at one time. Multitasking is not healthy, but we actually can do all of that with help, but we can.
One sentence to a terrified first time police mom.
Find your ally, find your network.
One sentence to a skeptical male supervisor.
Ooh. One sentence. Only one.
Just one.
Um, have a conversation. Like just have a real conversation with that woman, not about her.
Mm. Not about her. Ma'am, does motherhood make you a better cop?
Oh my gosh, yes. Talk about more empathy, more understanding. You look at people as if you were somebody's baby and you're still someone's child.
Mm, I love that. All right, Miss Jenna. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation,
Awesome.
and I really think that this is going to do a lot of good for so many people, not just women, but for men in their agencies. I can't wait to send this to every supervisor that I know. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there one thing? Let's do one last question before we leave. If you could change one policy tomorrow, what would it be?
Ooh, more robust mental health policy so that people know how it can actually be utilized. When I needed to stay on light duty for mental health, I had to go in and ask because I truly didn't know what that
Mm.
would look like. I've since been very open about the fact that I use light duty for mental health, and I've had more men reach out to me about it on how they can use it than women have reached out to me on how to use it.
Mm.
So again,
See,
it's everybody.
when you
Yeah,
help a woman, it helps everybody.
it does.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Jenna. You are the best.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hmm